Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to my first ever video tutorial. In this video you'll learn everything you need to know about the simple factory design pattern. Don't worry, this will be easy. Let's get right into it. So what is this simple factory? Well, simply put, it's a creational design pattern, which just means it's one of several proven and field-tested techniques for creating and initializing objects. The idea is that we have a dedicated class that creates and initializes one out of several related objects, and then returns an abstraction of this object, usually an interface. The factory will typically expose a create or a get method that takes a parameter that specifies which object to create. So in this diagram, our factory is this shape factory class. It has a method called getShape, which creates an instance of either circle, square, or rectangle objects, and then returns a shape interface, which is a common interface to all three classes. So let's see what this looks like in code. Okay, so let's define an interface called iShape that has a single method called draw, which on the implementing classes will simply print to the console the type of shape that the class is. So let's go ahead and do this now. Let's create the iShape interface. iShape. Public iShape. Void draw. Perfect. Save. Now let's create our classes. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Circle. Public class circle implements iShape, and of course we have to implement the draw method. Console.writeLine on the circle. So this is pretty good, but we can improve this a little bit. Circle. So we just made this method a little bit more type safe. So now every time there's a change to circle and we forget to change this line right here, we're gonna get a compile time error, as opposed to a runtime error like we had before. So now let's go ahead and create our square class. Square. And our rectangle class. Let's take a look now at the main entry point of our application. Oh, 1 second, forgot to rename this to rectangle. Good. So this is our main method. And now let's say we have a client, which is simply a method that will take a list of shapes and iterate over them and call the draw method. And let's call this method paint. We'll take a list, or better yet, an IEnumerable of iShape shapes for each good shape.draw. And now to invoke this method, let's do what most people do and simply instantiate the objects directly. So let's say var circle, new circle, var square, new square. No, that's not a square. Square, var rectangle, rectangle. Great, let's add them all to a list. Shape. Let's add circle, square, rectangle. Perfect, and now let's invoke our ping method with the list. And we'll add a console.read line just so that we can pause our application and actually see what gets outputted. So we got, I'm a circle, I'm a square, I'm a rectangle. Perfect. Now this works, but we've just created two issues. Number one, we've tightly coupled our program class with these three classes, which basically means anytime there is a change to any of these classes, we have to come here and make changes to our program class. And number two, we just force our main method to know exactly how to initialize all three of these objects. So in this case, of course, it's very simple. It's just a one-liner. But in the real world, it's often a lot more complicated. There's usually a lot of setup that's involved and multiple calls that need to be made just to initialize a single object. So how can we resolve this? Well, that's the whole point of this video. Simple factory to the rescue. So let's go ahead and create our factory class now. Let's call our factory shape factory. We can actually make it a static class, and it will expose a single method called create. So public static create that returns an eye shape. And now we just need to specify what type of object we want to create. So usually people pass in a string, but string matching can be a little bit error prone, so I recommend an enum. Let's call it shape type. And let's auto-generate it. Shape type. Enum. Circle, square, rectangle. Perfect. And now we'll simply have a switch statement depending on the type that's passed in here. So switch type. So in case of the circle, return new circle. Case of a square, and new square. Case of a rectangle, return new rectangle. And by default, it will throw an argument exception. So now let's plug this into our main method. We can replace all of this simply with shape factory.create. and circle. Shape factory dot create square. Shape factory dot create rectangle. No. Rectangle. Let's verify that this works. Yep, we'll get the same result. Circle, square, rectangle. With this approach, we were able to decouple our code from the circle, square, and rectangle classes, and now we don't even care about how those objects get created. It's none of our concern. So in your own code, consider applying this design pattern whenever you see new object instantiation, specifically when you see the keyword new. An easy way to remember is if you recall the saying, new is glue. That's it for this video. If you found this tutorial helpful in any way, give it a thumbs up or leave a comment. And make sure you check out the next video in this series. It should be coming out in the next few days. See you guys in the next one.